You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the. I can do it.
My name is X. I'm a video journalist and I am attempting to educate the public about past and present American political events. My goal is to enable change through critical thinking by simply telling the truth. The truth can bring about change if enough people understand it. The truth is always supported by facts, and the truth for this video is the American government does not care about the majority of its citizens. No matter what words they use, if they say otherwise, they are lying. Every so often, the government will do something that benefits the citizens, but is merely a charade attempting to cover up corruption. The democracy the Founding Fathers had envisioned has been broken, although it was never truly intact. Regardless of that, what the majority of people want does not usually happen. I'm not going to cite many sources for this particular video. You need to do your own homework. I have many topics to cover and little time. In 2003, the Bush administration stated many times over Iraq was going to destroy America with weapons of mass destruction that Iraq actually did not have. It's supposed to be guilty until proven innocent. Americans attacked Iraq mercilessly without sufficient evidence of any weapons. And when the war is over, no weapons are found, only oil. Bush lied about an imminent threat to American safety in order to break international law. The lie was an excuse to commit the horrendous crime of unleashing the American war machine upon a third world country stricken with poverty. To attain resources and establishing a sliver of U.S. dominance within the Middle East was the true nature. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will do the best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. That is the oath that every president takes. Where in the Constitution is lying to the public to start a war? I don't see how he possibly couldn't have violated this oath with these actions. Obviously, if they lie to you to get what they want, they do not care about you. Actions speak. No taxation without representation is the slogan which started the idea of a prosperous America for all. You are getting taxed, but are you really getting represented when you're being lied to and manipulated? Most of America is in poverty and or is a part of the middle class. There are very few rich people compared to the rest of the population. With that being said, the tax plan should definitely favor the middle class and the poor, considering they are the majority and they are in need. If true democracy was in place, the majority would always win. However, the tax plan has loopholes such as incentives and charity deductions, which enables the rich to pay a less percentage of taxes on the income they make. Basically, Bill Gates or whatever big baller can donate to charity, which allows for a tax deduction, which saves them money. They aren't being charitable when they give to an organization, especially when it saves them money. If I could save myself $20 by buying you a $5 cheeseburger, you would have had that cheeseburger yesterday, I promise. Because I'm so charitable. If the rich paid the same tax percentage as you and I, the great deficit of America would be far better. And if the middle class and poverty-stricken were allowed the tax break the wealthy currently enjoy, the government would still have more than enough money. Democracy is supposed to be laws and plans to help the majority, not the select few, and the rich who don't need help anyway. If you cannot afford your taxes to the government that does not represent you, or care about you, I may add, you're jailed. You can't pay them, you can't afford to pay them, you're thrown in jail. There are actually several states and laws that jail the poor and homeless. There's too many of those, in fact. Instead of helping you, they would rather incarcerate you for financial gain. And after incarcerated, you get a record, and without money and resources, cleaning or expunging of the record becomes difficult. Finding a job becomes difficult when you're a convict. The jobs you work are then limited, and that enables a cycle of poverty started by the government criticizing people for being poor. Jail is supposed to be for murderers, rapists, thieves, people who are a threat to society, people who need to be locked away that theirs to file. Jail is not supposed to be for the vet with PTSD who can't afford his meds or his taxes and is looking for his next meal in the garbage bin. And yes, doing through the trash for a meal is illegal, they will jail you for that. There's enough food and resources for everyone in America to not be starving. So why are people starving? Well, it's because they'd rather you die or be thrown in jail than give you a free meal. They would rather you be raped and beaten in jail than for you to get a free meal. And some dumbass out there is going to be screaming, no handouts. Again, the government is taking more from your hand than the hands of the rich. And I'd rather have my tax dollars spent on feeding the poor instead of arming the Taliban. During America's sloppy and premature exodus of Afghanistan, they left somewhere around $20 billion in military-grade weapons and equipment. They armed the Taliban with your tax dollars, basically. That's a pretty good handout. So, not only is the government and democracy broken, it's also inefficient and incompetent. Most jobs you mess up, you get fired. So all I really want to know is, who fucked that up? Who gave the Taliban $20 billion in weapons? And why do they still have a job? But in prison, they do give you a free meal and decent medical attention. The cost of medicine is so high in America, roughly 10 to 20% of Americans get their medicine imported from somewhere like Canada. 25% of Americans say they had a loved one die from not being able to afford medical treatment. You pay taxes to a government who refuses to regulate medicine prices, most likely because it isn't profitable if we are following the pattern and making an educated guess off of their continued selfishness. Someone in America has to make the choice today of dying from not being able to afford medical attention or affording their medical attention and risk jail or repossession of the IRS because they can't pay their taxes. And the government has been bought. The Supreme Court failed in the Citizens United ruling a decade ago, allowing corporations to donate as much as they want to political campaigns, enabling them to practically buy elections and politicians. The candidate who works most for the corporations, rather than the people, get the most money donated to their campaign. And that person with the most money who works for the corporation has the most campaign donations, almost always, usually wins. Congress sells your internet data. It's something else that's not for discussion or debate by the citizens of America, and yet they're the only ones who are affected and the ones who least want it. No taxation without representation, and yet all these things are happening the majority does not want. You're being taxed, but you're not being represented. Finally, in recent news, the debt limit. Everyone with half a brain cell can see the recent crisis was put into effect by Donald Trump's tax break for the rich, which he obviously benefited from. Corona hurt the debt limit as well, emergency aid relief, people being jobless, stuff like that. Many things contributed to this debt limit needing to be increased in order to prevent the government shutdown. Democrats and Republicans both contributed. Hell, the debt ceiling was raised during Trump's presidency 3 times. One time in particular, so him and the rich could attain their tax break toward more wealth. However, Biden struggles to get the limit increased only once to prevent a government shutdown. If the government shuts down, a lot of people who work for the government would be affected badly, obviously because they would be without income. And I'm not referring to Congress themselves. They have a nice little nest egg stacked up. If the government shuts down today, they'll be okay. I'm talking about the average workers of the government, no men or women, service people, people in the military. Anybody with a federal job who isn't making bank would be potentially fucked if the government shuts down. So what's the reason Biden can't get a debt limit increase to prevent this tragedy? Well, Mitch McConnell, a direct quote, he says, Republicans' position is simple. We have no list of demands. For 2.5 months, we have simply warned that since your party wishes to govern alone, it must handle the debt limit alone as well. And so when I read that, I actually thought to myself, and I'm going to paraphrase, I'm going to put his quote into another quote, because what he was basically saying was, we made this mess on the playground together, but you don't want to play with us anymore. So now that shit has hit the fan and will affect everybody, we don't want to help. We could, but we don't want to, because we are giant man babies who never matured. If you voted for this man, Mitch McConnell, and you work for the government, you're stupid, unless you're rich, because he could take your paycheck. If you voted for him, and you work for the government, and you're not big balling, you're stupid. Who would rather squabble with the Democrats than see you get paid? He'd rather argue than see your family eat. If you have a relative who works for the government and you voted for Mitch McConnell, unless you're going to pay that relative's bills amid the government shutdown, you don't care about that relative. If you have a friend who works for the government and you voted for Mitch McConnell, you do not give a fuck about that friend. Mitch McConnell would rather see your friends starve. The government has failed and will continue to do so. Changing it so it actually represents and benefits the majority of people will take time, years, decades. A law should be set in place so that if a member of Congress is found to not be working for the people, but working for themselves, they should be jailed. America is for the people. And if you are a part of a body that is supposed to represent the people, are not doing so, you should face punishment. Change starts with voting. Don't vote for Mitch McConnell. He's proven himself a selfish ass. And once Americans found out that the 2003 war in Iraq was for oil and not for weapons, and that they lied to the people, once they learned all of that, those members of Congress who went along with Bush's ruse should have been punished severely for the blood on their hands. Bush should not have been president any longer. But instead, the same liars and cheats were most likely voted back into office, if not all of them, some of them. Educate yourself to make a difference. Right now, we are divided. A lot of the division has to do with race and party affiliation, which is stupid. I will be making future content on that, by the way. But as long as the poor and the middle class are divided, the government will continue to act selfishly and to pass laws and taxes that favor the rich.
You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the I can do it.